Lately, people have become concerned with what other people have between their legs. In many states in America, proposals are being made to create state laws that will prevent transgender people from using toilets based on the gender they believe they are. Rather, they will have to use toilets based on the gender they were born with, i.e., the gender that is currently on their birth certificate. The argument that people initially came out with after a backlash to these bills was that they have to stop creepy rapists coming into the toilets claiming to be transgender and potentially raping our women. When that didn't seem to sway the general feeling, it turned to instead, would you let a man claiming to be a woman in the toilets with your daughter? He's probably a paedophile. The statistics for transgender people harassing or assaulting another person in a toilet is presently 0. If it has happened, it's gone unreported. You see, the main thing trans people are more concerned about when going into toilets is whether or not they'll get abuse. That and the need to pee, as with anyone going into toilets. People react rather awfully when it comes to finding someone who appears not to belong somewhere, and in the case of women's toilets, there will be a lot of screaming. I can't say for men's loos, as in my experience I've only ever ventured into them once, and the only guy in there acted with bewilderment. I had chased him in there for whatever reason, and he thought it was a good hiding place. We were 16, anyway. The fact that people feel the need to also claim that there will be a slew of men trying to pretend to be transgender women and also to gain entrance to women's toilets is astounding. I don't know if this has ever happened before the suggestions of the bill, so why on earth would it happen now? It is, of course, all about the fear of the other, keeping people fearful that something like this might happen, so to stop it from ever happening, they must penalise all transgender people as a whole, despite there being no evidence that this will happen or ever has happened. The hard truth people seem unwilling to accept a lot of the time is that the vast majority of assaults on children are perpetrated by people known to them. Almost 90% of children that are abducted are taken by someone known to them, and 70% of rape victims know their attackers. Of course, it does happen. People are attacked by rapists, abductors, etc., that are not known to them, as by the statistics, this equates to 30% of rapes and 10% of abductions, but the number is much smaller than the screechy media makes out. Parents are still overly concerned with stranger danger, as are many grown adults venturing out alone. It's not helpful in the slightest, and in this case, seriously hurts the rights of transgender people and their ability to just have a pee without getting shouted at, or worse, beaten up. The way certain areas of the media are painting transgender people as a whole is incredibly unhelpful and bordering on cartoonishly evil. I have transgender friends, and they are some of the nicest people I know. I know that 3 out of a possible 300,000 people in the UK isn't a good basis for knowing what every trans person is like, but it's the same with anything. I can't know what every white person is like on the planet, but at the same time, I don't assume they're all cunts either. Just this one. The same goes for transgender people. People need to accept that the world is moving forwards. The world is always moving forwards, and things are always changing. People are becoming more accepting and more inclusive in their beliefs, and more people are finding wider acceptance of things that we're only starting to properly understand now. It's happened before, and the people complaining about it now will one day be relegated to the status of embarrassing transphobic grandma. People need to let go of their hate. In order for the human race to continue and become less insular, more peaceful, we need to let go of these petty complaints. Ultimately, these people aren't hurting you in any way at all. You're just coming up with any excuse to stop them from having their basic rights, and it's disgusting when people act like this because they're human too. We're all human, and we're all heading in the same direction in the end. There's nothing they're doing really that hurts you in the slightest, yet you feel it's your right to hinder their rights, and it's awful that people can be treated like this and forced to live in a world where they aren't allowed to be themselves and be who they know they are inside. It's loathsome in a way, not only for the people who live in North Carolina and these other states, but for people who live in the rest of the world who may want to go to America. They're now having to consider the fact that they may never be able to go to parts of such a great country because people like them are being treated so revoltingly purely for who they are. Consider it worse again for those who don't quite adhere to the generic feminine appearance that some women do. These trans women, who might not necessarily pass, as the term goes, might reconsider their plans based on all of this, in order to avoid any confrontation, and this simply isn't fair. No cis woman has to look feminine. I've been told that whenever I walk, I look like I'm walking away from an explosion in an action film. I am a cis woman. Should I expect abuse from people assuming on the off chance that I am not cis, because I don't necessarily adhere to a certain accepted standard of being female? I can't help the way I walk. I just happen to look fucking cool when I do. This is what happens, I suppose, when you try to install a backwards rules in a world that's moving forwards. We get situations such as that in Georgia, where companies such as Disney and AMC say they will stop pumping money into states because of these outdated proposals that may have been better accepted, say, 40 years ago. These places are going to have to take a long, hard look at themselves and consider which is more important: the oppression and abuse of an entire class of people based on very little evidence for their claims, or money.